Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In this episode, I'm just going to respond to the story about the insurance policy, the life insurance policy that is being apparently disputed. And I'm just going to kind of give you the True Crime Rocket Science position on that. I've listened to one or two channels talking about it, and I'm just going to provide a different perspective. If you're not quite sure what it's about, go to these other channels. I'm sure they will give you all the background you need, but it's basically that Watts took out insurance policies on his family, on his wife, on his children, to the value of $450,000 while he worked at Anadarko. And after Shannan's murder and the murders of the children, that life insurance had to go to somebody. And the company responsible is a company called, I think it's URICH American, right? Now, I always think it's important to keep context in mind. So there are two major areas of context that I want to put into your minds, and then you can see what you make of it. So the one thing is just the source of the story. So where does the story come from? There's a channel that has come up that seems to be presenting a defense case kind of on a daily basis. They've just put something up in the last couple of minutes, and that channel hasn't said anything about the life insurance, and it seems to be an apologist channel for Chris Watts' defense, and also for his possible appeal, and also for, I guess, his parents. So there's nothing there. I would have expected something to be there, but nothing's there. So the other thing that you've got to... Sorry, that wasn't someone angry with me here. It was just the wind blowing the door closed. I've got all the windows open because it gets hot. And I'm here in South Africa and it's morning. And so you open the windows to ventilate the house. And that's what that door slamming was all about. Anyway, getting back to serious matters. So the source, as far as I can see, is OK Magazine. So it's a tabloid. And the question is, who is feeding that tabloid that information? I actually can't access that tabloid. I think there's some kind of geographical embargo on it, so I can't actually read it. I will put a link to that in the description so you guys can read it. But in any event, there is another source document. And although it's not quite the same thing, it does come down to something similar. And what that is there was a filing. I'm just trying to get the date of this filing. I've got it in front of me. I'm just trying to find the date. Looks like the 30th of July this year. So not that long ago. And it was actually just before the kind of 2-year anniversary, which I think is quite interesting. It's Zurich American Insurance Company Plaintiff versus Franklin RZUCEK as the personal, and this is the part that I want to draw your attention to. He's the representative of the estate of Shannan Watts, also the representative of Ronnie Watts, Cindy Watts, and himself and Sandra RZUCEK, right? And they are the defendants. So there's kind of like this, how can I put it? It's the insurance company versus the defendants, right? Now, what is kind of strange is why are we hearing the story that Ronnie and Cindy are going after this insurance money and not from the RZUCEKs? And I think you can draw your own inferences from that. I would suspect if the RZUCEKs didn't get paid out, they would say something and you'd hear about it. And since you're not hearing about it, I would assume they were paid out. That could be wrong, and you've got to be careful making assumptions. But doesn't that kind of make sense, right? The other thing that I think contextually is relevant is Chris Watts is being rumored to appeal, and if he's going to appeal, he needs money. If he's going to mount an appeal, and if he's going to use a illegitimate lawyer, not legitimate, but you kind of want to hire a defense lawyer that knows his stuff. There's a big difference in just hiring a lawyer and hiring a lawyer that's really got a good reputation, reputation for mounting strong cases and with like a almost 100% track record in winning cases. And you do get lawyers like that, and they're like kind of like hired guns, and they need a lot of money. And what is always interesting when you look at certain cases, and a few that I can think about are Casey Anthony, another one is Stephen Avery, is you sort of wonder why the heck are kind of big shot lawyers hovering around these cases when the suspect at the center of it doesn't seem to have any money. And Scott Reich makes a good point, if a bit of a cynical one, that everything is about money, and if they say it's not about money, it is about the money. I don't think it's exclusively about like that. I don't think that's the be-all, end-all of it. But because there's another lawyer, this time a prosecutor, who said something along the lines of, talking about criminal psychology and motive, saying if it's not about money, it's about sex, and if it's not about sex, it's about money, and usually it's about both. But that's obviously the criminal psychology. So just in terms of this, I think you've got to bear in mind that Chris Watts wants to mount a defense, sounds like it, just by all the stirrings that you're hearing, but he's going to need money to do that. And so where's he going to get money? He doesn't have any money. His family don't really have any money. I'm talking about big money. So where's he going to get it from? And the easy answer to that question is from the insurance. And I just quickly saw that, I think it's Mommy Ramblings was just saying that, how low can you go? I don't quite see it that way. I mean, I can understand from the perspective where you say, well, Chris Watts murdered his own family. Should his parents be rewarded with the money? Also knowing that he committed this crime. And that's a fair statement to make. But the other side of it is, they want to get money whatever way they can, I'm speculating, in order to mount a defense which I can certainly see from their point of view they felt he was entitled to, and he's certainly feeling that way now. Now, I think most of us feel like, well, that ship has sailed, it's too late. But the important thing to bear in mind is, how does he feel? And you might say, well, I don't care, but the point is that is how he feels, that is how they feel, and so that is why they're doing what they're doing. In other words, it's money that's available, and they want to get their hands on it so that they can do something with it. And they really want to do something, and otherwise their hands are tied. I'm not saying it's right or wrong or ethical or whatever. I'm just saying that is what it looks like is happening. Does that make sense? Another issue that I'm finding very curious about the Watts case, certainly at this point, is, during the early period where the Chris Watts case was absolutely dominating national headlines in America, so you had all of the big channels in Colorado and to some extent America covering it. You had, the Denver channel, you had the Boulder Daily Camera, Times Call, if I'm going to repeat myself, Denver 7, just so many. You had ABC, CBS, CNN, HLN, the New York Times, the New Yorker, just a lot of these channels, People magazine covering all of it. And as time has gone by, they've just stopped reporting on it. HLN was one of the first to just mysteriously just stop reporting on it. And I made some inquiries. I won't say too much about it, but I made some inquiries and just heard that, no, that they're not interested in. This was kind of around the time of the second confession in February, that they said, as far as we're concerned, the book is closed on Chris Watts. We don't have anything more to say. And then the only coverage you sort of got was a little bit from People magazine. And then when Sherilyn Cadle came out with a book, no US, there was virtually zero US reporting of it at the time, but it was reported. It was reported in the Daily Mail, like a UK tabloid. That was the only one who would touch that. And that's quite strange because those were actually the letters that he wrote, and it did move the story forward, not necessarily in a totally credible way, but it certainly was something from the source of all of this, the ground zero of the Watts case, Chris Watts. And yet none of the other media wanted to touch it. And all I'm saying is we sort of continued with that. It's kind of been interrupted with the Netflix documentary, and as soon as the Netflix documentary came around, all the other media sort of gravitated back to it. So you would have noticed the New York Times would have spoken about the Watts case again, talking about the Netflix documentary. The same with a lot of other respected media, too many to mention, but besides all of the media in Colorado, others like, I guess, The Guardian in the UK and so on. In other words, the non-tabloid media. And then, anyway, and so just with that in mind, it's interesting that this thing about the insurance, the only people covering it is OK Magazine. And I'm not saying that tabloid coverage is nonsense. I'm not saying that at all. In fact, a very good example of where the tabloid coverage was both excellent and terrible is the John Benet Ramsey case. I'm just saying those tabloid reporters got incredible information and scoops that arguably even the police couldn't get a hold of, right? And it was just incredible. And you had something like that also with the Madeleine McCann case. And of course, both people involved in those cases ultimately turned around and said, this was so unfair to us. This has been a trial by media. Yes, to some extent. Yes, some of the tabloid stuff was opportunistic and misleading and maybe inaccurate. But a lot of it wasn't. A lot of it was based on reporters actually finding things and reporters scooping things, almost like, amateur detectives. So I don't want to sort of suggest that tabloid media is absolutely useless. Of course, in the world of fake news, it's very tempting to be dismissive about it. So I think the way to sort of resolve this is Cindy Watts and Ronnie Watts need to kind of communicate through somebody they know or trust or whatever that is indeed their intention. And it would be interesting to know what the actual situation is. Did they feel entitled to money, and so how come they didn't get it? What is the reason for that? So it would be interesting to hear from them what their position is. just a final point I want to make, and this just goes to the incentive not to have a trial, is you could sort of argue, if there is I'm talking about way back in November, if there is a trial, okay, so here's money that you could stand to get once the trial has concluded, or once Chris Watts has been found guilty, right? So, but now it's like, well, if there's a trial, it's probably going to take an extra year or 2 or 3, and only then will you get this money. Oh, do you want a trial to happen? No. I want the money. I'm just saying, could that have been a factor in there not being a trial? You can get whatever, $200,000 or $450,000 sooner than later. It's kind of like, well, do we want to offer this plea deal or not? And by the way, there is a financial aspect that you should be aware of. No. We want to not have the plea deal. Sorry, we want to accept the plea deal because we don't judge Chris Watts. God should judge him. And then, of course, you get a lot of judgment on creators. There's a lot of. It's not as though the case didn't go to trial and it was all left with grace and everyone sort of walked away. Do you know what I'm saying? I won't say everyone was forgiven, but there was kind of a sense of grace and let's put it behind us. Instead, I've definitely noticed a lot of interest and involvement on social media by people at the center of the Watts case, and some of it is quite vindictive, some of it is quite nasty, some of it is all those different things. And so the question you sort of got to ask yourself is, what was the actual incentive for the people who should have been the most interested in a trial not being interested in a trial? If my memory serves me, there was a statement somewhere in the discovery where Shannan's parents stayed with the Watts family for 15 or 16 months in 2017, and they were trying to find jobs in Colorado, and as far as I understand, they had their house up for sale in North Carolina, but that is what Chris Watts said. It may not be true, but if it is true and they try to sell their house unsuccessfully, it makes you wonder, Shannan or the Watts couple were facing bankruptcy. Is anyone else in the story, were they also struggling financially? And if so, would the $450,000 come in handy for someone who's struggling financially? And added to that, I think you should also acknowledge that a lot of the people who get involved in multi-level marketing are people who are perhaps struggling in that area, and the attraction of multi-level marketing is big money, quick money, easy money, and kind of a luxury lifestyle. You're gonna get luxury cars, and it's all just going to be a total solution to your financial problems. But the people who are attracted to that idea tend to be people who either have lost their jobs or are struggling. They are, in other words, desperate people. People who are desperate, people who are in debt, people who are struggling to stay above water financially. And so desperate people will believe kind of anything, and that they especially like to believe stories about easy money, quick fix, free lunch, all that kind of thing. And as we know in economics, there are no free lunches. So one thing I'm unfamiliar with, I'm familiar with the law regarding, I think they call it the bloodied hand cannot inherit, right? So in other words, a perpetrator who commits a crime, this is well known around the world. If you commit a crime, you can't benefit from it. You can't inherit or get some kind of benefit. What I'm a little bit unclear about is in a situation where you've killed your own family, can your extended family inherit, or are they precluded because of that? I imagine the answer is that they won't be precluded, but I don't know that for sure. And so that would be quite interesting to know. Because obviously, if Chris Watts' parents inherit a portion of this insurance money, you can easily see Chris Watts himself benefiting directly or indirectly out of that, especially in a scenario where they literally use that money to pay for his defense. Now, I'm not saying that's going to happen. I'm just saying, I'm asking, isn't that likely to happen? And if it is, then should they have that access to that money? And you might say no, but the other side of it is, well, are they legally, is that legally permissible? And again, I'm not, I'm certainly not a legal expert in civil matters like that, but I can't see kind of why not. I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's good. I'm just saying I don't know whether there's a legal impediment to that. And there's also a twist to this whole story, and let's see what you guys think about it. And the twist is, what if it's the other way around? What if the whole idea of the appeal has come from the sort of awareness that, okay, well, you can't inherit this money because you committed these crimes, right? But if Shannan committed some of them, then someone else should or could or would inherit a portion of it, if that makes sense. Do you get what I'm kind of angling at? And so it's almost like, is that why the appeal is actually happening? Is the appeal happening to reverse the legal, not to get Chris Watts necessarily out of jail, or not to, so that he's exonerated, but to some extent to win a settlement, either for his family or to some extent mitigate his sentence, but also that money can then be used to help him do what he's doing. And you know, if you've got $200,000 or whatever the amount that is, you know, in the offing, that is going to attract certain interested legal people, in the same way that in the Stephen Avery case, I think there was something like $38 million that he was going to get in restitution for wrongful imprisonment. And I think that is the prize that his two hotshot lawyers were hoping to get their hands on if they won his case for him. And they were unsuccessful. But when they disappeared, another lawyer came along, and she's been petitioning, as well. Why do you think she has? Why do you think it's been that aggressive? Isn't the answer obvious? Anyway, I thought I would just share my thoughts on it, and I'd be interested to hear yours. So let me know in the comments. If you haven't subscribed yet to this channel, please do like, share, leave a comment, and I'll see you guys next time.